So high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Hello. Welcome to everyone. Sorry for that rather long delay. I feel like the whole day. I mean, I woke up very late today for what I usually wake up. And yeah, and then it just sort of really ran away from me. So I'm unfortunately still doing a little bit of prep work, and then I didn't really even realise that I hadn't sent Whitney the link. So let's bring her in. Hey Whitney, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Your volume is a little low for me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Or
Does that
maybe
make it any
I think Maya is here. Maybe she can help.
How is it now? I'll bring it a bit closer to my mouth. Don't really know how to, because my actual mic doesn't have like a volume on it, so I don't really know how to do it at once.
Cool. All right.
Oh right, yeah, Maya says it's fine. Cool.
Good.
And welcome Maya and Hans. Thank you for coming and joining us, and the many other people who are. Oh, she says I am low. Well, I hope sort of speak up a bit. But I'm still a little bit under the weather with a cold, so I apologise if it could be because of that as well. But yeah, sort of everyone who is here, please like the video if you don't mind, and if you would like to also subscribe, please do. Always like a bit of that. Let me see where, and then you can also subscribe to Whitney. She does going through court documents for lawsuits and things, mostly to do with Scientology. So do go and check her out, please. Wonderful. So yeah, he says I'm quite low as well. I don't really know how to change that. Let me just check my settings, because when I came in it said that my hello, yeah, it says like that song. Interesting. Yeah, so I'll just try and talk a bit louder, but yeah, apologies if I am just generally low. Yeah, I'm trying not to strain my voice too much. Oh gosh, I keep losing my images. Right, so today's topic is on cotton. Mostly because I did my dissertation on cotton, and it's quite interesting. Like, I was just sort of going through some to see if there's actually like any new facts, and there doesn't really seem to be a lot of newness coming out, which is kind of disappointing, really. Yeah. But yeah, let me just get a few more images, and then we will get into it. But yeah, so
give us some. Could you give us some background about when you wrote or when you studied this information, and then, you know, how you put it all together and stuff, and what it was for and everything?
Yeah. So I did my dissertation back in 2009. No, sorry, 2007. Even longer ago. When I was doing my dissertation with my BA honours in menswear. And that was a dissertation of 10,000 words we had to do. And because to get the honours part on my BA, that's like what the dissertation's for. So yeah, just a little fun fact in that.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah. And then sorry. So I did that, and you know what, to be honest, I can't even remember now sort of where I got my sort of kind of facts from at the time. Let me see if I've got anything in here. But what I was looking at was so my dissertation was called Cotton Bush to Shop. And yeah, I can't remember like around the time sort of why I necessarily got into sort of why I chose that as a subject.
Yeah.
I must have seen like something come up sort of when I was doing sort of around kind of whatever I was making at the time in my university or something. Oh right, here we go. So I've got one of my places of sort of literature that I use, words I don't use, where I got sort of some of my facts from was a place called a website called UTexas, so UTEXAS .edu edu / white biotechnology.
Oh, nice.
So it was a textile book and a textile book by Colin Gow and Jasper Kerr. And that was a fairly new published one. That was a 2002 published day. And then another one, Mackenzie D, green design for the environment. And because we had like a library at the college, so there was sort of like plenty of places to kind of sort of like look up different information. And then another one, fashion from concept to consumer, Ginny Stevens Friends. So and it's sort of kind of led me down this thing. I think I was sort of interested because my dissertation name was Cotton Bush to Shop, was more just sort of interested in that kind of sort of production side of things.
Right.
But then in the research, I was, as you can tell by sort of like some of the books I was reading, that I sort of started to stumble across more sort of like sustainable readings, and kind of that's where then I found out about the organic cotton. So in the end, my dissertation turned out to be like a cotton versus organic cotton, and sort of that's then when sort of my journey into like sustainability started, was sort of finding out about all that.
That's so interesting.
I didn't realize, and it was actually, you know what, and it could have been something that even piped into that, which I sort of spoke about yesterday on Jenny's stream, which was I found out about leather because I was making a leather jacket for my final collection, and we went to a guy who sold skins, and he was talking about byproduct leather and how it's different from just like sort of normal leather and things like that. And that sort of like kind of really opened my eyes up as well, because I'd never even thought about that being such a thing. You know, I didn't realize that animals were sort of bred and kind of killed in a very different way.
Yes.
Whether it was for meat or not. So, and, you know, and really sort of like horrified me that it would sort of like the slaughter would be so much more harmful when they weren't going for meat, because obviously like we always hear so much about that.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that was just like really interesting to me. And yeah, and it's possibly sort of a catalyst for what led into me looking up cotton. And yeah, so that was kind of sort of the build up around it, really. And yeah, and then kind of sort of since then, the things I haven't actually found in my research actually, which goes to show sort of what kind of blogs like sort of Google likes, but I found out sort of since that there are such things. Sorry, it keeps going over the same image. So yeah, it is also rain-fed cotton.
Oh.
So rain-fed cotton is then like a whole other thing on top of organic. So it's sort of like kind of a better version of that.
Oh, wow. I have never heard of that. Wow.
Yeah. So so basically sort of you get like a cotton seed, and sort of historically cotton would always be grown in sort of like South India, near the coast. So then it's got the water, and it would sort of kind of be more sort of efficient to sustaining the crops, and sort of easier to sort of helping the growth, I suppose, like, because the water was right there. Whereas obviously sort of as time goes on, and also that sort of, for anyone that doesn't know, that's why like people from sort of South India tend to be a lot darker in skin color than those in the north, because they would work out in the sun for longer, and that's why they had all the fields down there. Versus then sort of kind of more sort of in modern times, they've then moved the field sort of further up north to other places near lakes and such, or even not near water at all necessarily, but you know, sort of away from the coast, because people want to spend their holidays by the coast and build hotels and get more money from doing that. So it's all kind of this sort of kind of, it comes kind of full circle in a way, you know, sort of you can't yes, you know, like it's nice to have our holidays by the beach and everything like that, but equally there are things that get grown on said water, and there are now lakes in I think the more major one was like in Georgia or something, if I can remember. I have to look up where that was, because that's one that I didn't actually come across, but that has dried up sort of. I think it actually has dried up now. I think it was like the past couple of years it sort of dried up. But yeah, this massive lake where they had moved a lot of the cotton farmers near, and therefore was then using the water from that, and it's quite a sort of dry kind of place anyway. So so they weren't getting much rainfall, potentially because, you know, sort of, I don't know if they had like cut down, if there was any forest nearby and things like that, but, you know, sometimes sort of that will often change the
the climate.
sort of like kind of local
in that small area.
So so that's kind of goes into that. And then so they have so then they've moved the fields, and then so then therefore that cotton seed is no longer, that is like for so long sort of grown in that particular soil, in that particular climate, has then been moved to a different place and then doesn't grow so well. So then they have to genetically modify the seeds to be able to grow in a better climate, and with that comes modifying them against pests, against different like sort of fertilizers and things like that to make them grow more, and to basically get more crop out of like sort of one bush. Which I will show some images once they download. So that's kind of where it sort of starts out with like the sort of genetic modification. Then what they then sort of kind of what they do after that is then sort of you get into like the organic cottons, and they are obviously designing those seeds. So then they don't sort of like kind of and maybe sort of better protected against sort of pests and things without having to use pesticides.
Drought tolerant or
exactly, and sort of can deal with sort of less water and things like that. However, what I found out when doing my dissertation was that there was such things throughout the 90s in particular, but even sort of kind of up until sort of now, even sort of really, because they're not even being paid very well, but there were such things as seeds being sold to the farmers that had to use a specific type of fertilizer product. So it was sort of presented to the farmers. And then with that comes that they need to so then they need to like sort of kind of buy this stuff, because it's like, it won't sort of perform very well otherwise.
I see. It restricts what they can grow and how, right? And
then it sort of gets into this whole sort of cycle of they're not sort of producing a better product. They're just producing a product that is ever more demanding upon this sort of particular sort of fertilizer, so it was called. Which then leads the farmers into debt, and sadly, which was like the most shocking thing that I came across, you then get these farmer suicides. So if you've not heard of farmer suicides, which kind of came up a few years ago when there was a lot of in sort of Pakistan, there was a lot of farmers protesting and things like that. It was a big old thing in the streets, and it was exactly because of that, because they were being lied to about what these sort of seeds could do, and sort of we're getting into just sort of like, you know, so much debt that they could never like see a way out of it, which
Oh
is
no,
sort of
that's
so
sad.
heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
And and that was all. They were sort of under this kind of organic guise, but they never were. So it's sort of it's so hard, because it's sort of, you kind of sometimes don't even know like where to trust.
Yes. Right.
So and then sort of, and then like I say, and then sort of kind of now you get these like rain-fed ones, which is taking the seed back to the original, finding out like sort of where they were originally grown.
Yes.
And so, you know, sort of there used to be ones in Africa and things like that as well, like sort of before they were even like taken to the US and things. So it's kind of sort of taking production back there, if it can't be sort of in places in like India and that. And, you know, and obviously sort of then it's on like a smaller scale, but, you know, at the end of the day, do we need all that is actually being produced?
Right.
So, and it's a far more sort of actually sustainable and healthy production to sort of see come from the crop itself. So that's kind of sort of the ins and outs of that, sort of in kind of an overview sort of way. Also, just as a little segue, I wanted to but because we're a bit late, I got sort of sidetracked. I put my coat on for you.
That's
my
so cute.
Isn't it just so teddy bear?
It's so cute. I love it so much.
But yeah, it's only short.
It's got a great coloration and texture to it. Oh, it's so pretty.
Thank you.
I love it.
But yeah, I thought I would go a bit Christmassy. Excuse my, I've still got my PJ bottoms on because I've had such a lazy day.
You look very festive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Jen got me into the festive mood yesterday with that stream. I'd all sorts on with my PJs. But yeah, and then just as a little visual of my, so this is my dissertation.
Oh, nice.
This is I don't think this is the actual final one because it's got notes on it, so I probably didn't actually print off the final one because, you know, why do you need to do that? Oh, actually saying that, no, I think this is actually it. Would be good attached to, no, that's still got comments, So I can read you a little bit of the introduction if you would like.
Sure.
So I had changed. So this has got the new title of my of the dissertation on it, Cloth Shop Cycle. So introduction: with the growing issues of greenhouse gases through industrial pollution and environment contamination through expansive farming, there are now issues with how to deal with these problems effectively. With this in mind, I have chosen to follow the production process of cotton cloth from organic and non-organic crops. I apologise for my ends maybe not sounding the best with my cold. To find out the future for textile production and how these environmental issues are dealt with. This leads my research into the effect this will have on the fashion industry through garment construction to the disposal and recycling of garments. Also, with the growth of technology within textiles influencing futuristic fashion design. From this, I am interested in the future of fashion design and the effect of changing markets on its consumers.
Mm.
So that's just a little
That's
sort of
great.
prelim. But yes, yeah, sort of it's been quite interesting actually, sort of going through and sort of seeing what I've
Mhm.
actually what I actually learned then. But I will just bring up my images just to give everyone an understanding of cotton. So this is cotton, these little white bits that you can see.
Yes.
That is the cotton. So just like a cotton bud that you, a cotton ball that you might see. It looks exactly like that. And they are hand-picked like this lady. Though I did find some images of these sort of like kind of turbine tractor things that go round. But
Yes.
you will see a lot of it still picked by people by
By hand.
hand.
Mhm.
I wonder if it might be more of an American thing that they have the tractors, but yeah, I can't tell.
Well,
Actually.
I can say with 100% accuracy that the first cotton gin was made by Eli Whitney. So,
Ah,
a little
amazing!
a little fact I picked up when I was younger. But
Oh, nice.
so it's called a cotton gin. But if you see in the picture there, those the the seed pod has popped open, right? And there's a white fluffy inside. But that seed pod, that brown kind of
The one at the top, yeah.
yeah, is very hard and very sharp. So it's very,
Ah, yeah.
very hard in your fingers when you pick cotton. So
Mm.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they all have sort of like the callus on their fingers,
Yes,
which is
it's
such a
very
shame.
sharp. Mhm.
Yeah. Also, I saw something from Brian earlier that I wanted to not miss. He said he comes from land of cotton. The land my family owns used to be part of the old cotton gin that
Oh,
used to service the farmers in the local area, which is absolutely amazing, Brian. I didn't even
that's
realise that.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got a little sort of link into it all. Oh, Maya, yeah, Teddy Claire. I'm truly the Claire Bear.
You got the cute little sweater or the jacket.
Yeah. And then Joe says, fun fact, the German word for cotton is
Baumwolle.
Baumwoll,
Baumwolle.
which literally means tree wool. Oh, how funny. But yeah, thank you to and hello to everyone else in the chat, Pup Groomer Joe, Brian and Maya, and everyone else watching. But yeah, so and then they sort of so kind of the sari is sort of quite a traditional thing to wear in sort of India and things.
Yes.
And then when they do the cotton picking, they tie it round their head like this lady has here, and then
Yes.
it sort
Oh
of
yeah.
hangs then down the back as like a little sort of bag almost, and then
Mhm.
that's then where they will put the cotton in there. But yeah, so it's kind of sort of this is kind of what I talk about when I sort of say about all the people behind the garment. Is it's not just the people behind making the sewing the garment, sorry. It's sort of like the people work in the fields as well, because
Absolutely.
obviously they'll be out there picking the cotton, but also sort of doing some de-weeding and things like that.
Right. Mhm.
Especially if it's is sort of like an organic farm, then sort of again all that needs to be done by hand.
Mhm.
If they are to be thought of as sort of truly organic.
Mhm.
Um,
Now the word
and
organic does organic cotton mean the same thing worldwide, or does it mean different things in different areas, or what is that?
yeah, I think that's the thing that we're coming to now is sort of like
Oh,
it should all mean the same thing. So like no pesticides, kind of I mean, like, there's never really been a thing on sort of how much water you can use, which is why then sort of the rain-fed one is such a different type of cotton now.
Yes.
And when I've used that, I really sort of promote that part of it, because, you know, sort of organic cotton uses just as much water as normal cotton. And I will tell you that figure is, because I had it here.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead.
No, not at all. Right, so it was always said that cotton used 20,000 litres of water to have it produced. So that is whilst it's in the farm, through to it being processed into the mill as a sheet of cloth. Though figures now are that, and this goes for sort of like all cotton kind of thing, whether organic or not. Now the figures are that it's only 2,068 litres, so quite a significant drop.
Really? Yes.
Yeah, and
That's
I
a lot.
think that is to do with the kind of lens that has been on cotton recent years, with kind of sort of people potentially sort of like kind of dialing it back, with, you know, like sort of how much they buy because of that, and also sort of brand demand, you know, sort of consumers influence what brands do, though obviously it is the brands that hold the most influence over sort of the whole kind of production. I was in a meeting recently about the Pakistani Accord, and so it's sort of even like, you know, they were saying in that sort of, if the brands don't demand it, then like the factories won't change. So
exactly,
it all comes down to the brand.
Yes.
So that is per, you know what, it didn't actually say when I was looking it up, but I do believe that's like sort of the year's worth of production.
Yes.
So oh gosh, I'm gonna just quickly blow my nose because I can feel it's ticking.
That's okay.
How do I? Oh, there we go. Oh, right, sorry. I hate sniffling, so
That's okay.
we'll try and blow my nose as much as possible. Right, so in the last, so what is forecast for 2023, 2024? So this sort of year that we are in, because this is based on the marketing year, which I think potentially runs from like the summers, or sort of like September to September. I'm not 100%, but because it didn't give an actual sort of month dates, but I believe it's something like that. So the forecast is that there will be produced 116 million bales of cotton produced through the World Cotton Mill. So that is and that is 4.5% above this sort of previous years. So that is, the forecast for 2023, 2024, 4.5% above 2022 to 2023 year. So it's sort of, you know, quite a jump, but apparently it's similar levels to 2021 2022.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's that. But then the global cotton production, which I believe is like what's in the farms, because
Yes.
that was the cotton mill. So that's like the cotton,
Processed, right?
yeah, sort of like what's made into cloth, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So then cotton production in the fields is a volume of 118 million bales. So yeah, so it's sort of it's a lot.
That's a
And
lot.
that, yeah. So, you know, sort of if you think like that's sort of what they're using water wise, you know, it's yeah, far better kind of deal with it. So yeah, we will, yeah, sort of that's what I kind of presume it's on. Yeah, it's very hard to sort of find kind of more succinct facts.
Yes.
So
Well,
I think I will need to do a longer sort of probably sort of as long as what I did on my first dissertation, sort of spend that much time sort of looking into it again.
yeah.
But yeah, sort of, so that's, yeah.
And it
That's
kind of depends on what the marketing buzz is around the cotton at that time as well, right? If it's you know, the mercerized cotton, and then there's, you know, different, it seems like there's cotton that's grown in different areas. So I think there's some states that put more money behind cotton than others and things like that. But the issues with water are going to, I think, impact a lot of different people. But who knows
exactly.
who, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, organic cotton is said to use 91% less water than non-organic. So I think also that reduction in water usage over the year is also sort of down to the more organic cotton being produced, which is hopefully only a good thing. But like I say, there are also some dodgy organic versions out there.
Yes.
But organic cotton has had a growth of 37% in the last year, which is due to consumer demand as well.
That's good.
Just wanted to just move our images on. So this is a full field of cotton, just so it sort of gets that kind of look. And also within organic cotton, there's 2 new organic variants that have just been sort of released in India and Pakistan. So again, this will go back to that finding sort of taking the seeds back to sort of their original state. So finding the ones that actually sort of belong to those regions. And it's taken 10 years of decentralized breeding of a decentralized breeding program to produce them. So, you know, sort of only time will tell kind of how sort of efficient they will be, but hopefully, you know, sort of that's yeah, like a really sort of positive thing for the future. And also some more fun facts. So this is just general cotton facts. So China, of all the places, I don't think people really realize how much production there is in China, but China is the leading producer of cotton currently.
Really?
Yeah, with 5.98 million tons of cotton produced.
No kidding. That's surprising to me. I don't know why I didn't think of China as a large cotton producer, but wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's predominantly to the west of China where they produce it.
Yes.
And yeah, sadly, it's that's where the sort of Myanmar community was
Yes.
living, who was obviously been through a lot of devastating sort of changes within their community, but they are predominantly Muslim community, if people didn't know, and for that they unfortunately are being quite highly punished in sort of recent years by the Chinese government for that, because they won't sort of integrate. So it's just like really, really sad. And the I won't be able to say that word.
Uyghur.
Uyghur people. But it's really, really sad. So a lot of the farmers there are and sort of pickers are it's quite sort of obviously, like, China is sort of a dictatorship, so it's very sort of military kind of how they get treated, and a lot of very low wages, if wages at all, and sort of very poor living and working conditions. So please sort of look out for kind of the brands that you're buying from and kind of where things are being produced. And if you are able to, then please look into the full sort of cycle of the garment and kind of where it's being produced from, not only in terms, but in terms of the farm that it's come from. Because it's very important that sort of obviously everyone gets treated fairly in these throughout the process of kind of anything that we buy, really. And then just my last one here is sort of an actual little bud. So then with that, now I've got an interesting one here, and I don't really know what it means, because it said China is the leading producer, but then India, and in sort of quotes it was like cotton seed. So I don't know if that's like the people who maybe own sort of the biggest production in India.
Oh yes.
It didn't give me sort of any information on that. So, but they have 41.7 and what I think should be million, but then it had MT instead of just T. But then obviously if it was million tons, then that would then make it more than China. So I'm not 100% sure. It didn't give me any sort of understanding of what that was meant to mean. But MT. So, but apparently that's sort of just under China in production wise. And then the US is 6.45 billion. And then this is US dollars, USD. And I'm like, why is it all, it's all in such. So
can't really.
Wasn't million tons, but I don't really get what it would mean otherwise.
Right.
So it's I apologize, but they go in that order, but apparently
so it's
the
China,
US
then India, and then US.
China. China is million and US is billion. So I don't really get how that works out, but I don't know. But that was also I got my first facts about the forecast from a website called USDA, and then these ones about the production from Statista, STATISTA. So if anyone wants to sort of kind of go look it up, and maybe you can sort of work it out a bit better than me. But they're kind of sort of all the sort of newer facts that I could kind of find out.
Yes.
Which I thought was sort of quite interesting. I'm not very good at sort of understanding sort of those kind of metrics. But you know that it's going to be like a hell of a lot of, you know, sort of, you've got like 3 countries like producing that much each,
Exactly.
you
It's a
know.
huge amount. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And I want to say that a t-shirt uses I think it's like 1,000
1,000 bowls or 1,000?
yeah, something like that. Like, I don't really
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000. Well, I suppose like liters is water. But
Mhm.
yeah, sort of kind of whatever measurement you would give to cotton.
Mhm.
Sort of yeah, maybe like sort of 1,000 cubic inches or something like that.
Well, and from the state that it's in the photo right there, you know, it still needs to be um, spun into thread and then woven and then, you know, so
Exactly. Yeah,
sewn
yeah. There's
together. And so the cotton is in that form right there is not, you know, the final shape of it. It could be, you know, reduced down to very small threads and things like that from that piece. So I think
yeah,
it actually
exactly.
takes, you know, quite a lot of what you would visually see as, you know, heaps of cotton to make like one product, right? One t-shirt or whatever. So,
Yeah, exactly,
mhm.
exactly. Um, and I'm currently
Nice.
growing a few fields of cotton. In farming simulator 22. Oh, how funny.
Cool.
And he also brought up a question. Is it better to have sheep for wool or cotton? So, I wouldn't say, well, I don't know. I suppose my short answer would be potentially wool. I think you get more wool from one sheep compared to sort of
Yes.
how many like bushes of cotton you might need.
Yeah.
You know, sort of, I think if you say sort of look at, you know, like a field of cotton, like sort of this second slide that I had.
Hmm.
Like, I would say, you know, sort of kind of for what we can see there, I would say like that would almost be like a t-shirt. You know, it's sort of like it's a
Absolutely.
lot, you know, it's a lot
Yes.
of those little balls, and you know, like what each bush is probably sort of I don't know, like maybe 20 to 30 balls, you know. I can't
Right.
imagine it's any more than 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like you say, you know, so you need to spin it out and sort of wind that round into a ball of yarn, and then sort of that then gets made into the sort of sheets of cloth.
Or
Yeah,
the
and
knitter or
it's
whatever. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah, and
Mhm.
it's you know, sort of, yeah, it's a lot. Joe says they make delicious cheese as well. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and I think sort of kind of if we go back to this whole thing of like sort of regenerative farming, which is what's being sort of pushed a lot more at the moment. So like things shouldn't just be sustainable or
Mhm.
organic or circular. It should be regenerative. So regenerative is where what you're producing helps something else in a different way. So it's sort of like,
Oh,
so yeah, so like in terms of farming, so you have your animals, and
yeah.
then you're, you know, on one hand, like this is sort of kind of where the stuff for sort of like veganism like comes in, because you're all sort of, you know, kind of sustainable eating is that you've got these animals, but then like you're um doing their food like halfway around the world,
Yes. Mhm.
like sort of halfway around the world, and then like shipping that in just to feed that animal, to then kill it, to then sort of like feed other people. Whereas you could sort of so then like you cut out meat production, so then you don't have to have them other fields. Whereas regenerative is, well, like they never used to do that. They used to have
Right.
the animal, and the animal would graze on the field of like, you know, sort of what's ever there. Maybe sort of eat all the weeds that like you don't want for other crops. And it would all be sort of kind of more natural, more sort of local, and all this and the other. And you know, maybe you would like give it some sort of vegetable scraps and things like that. That sort
Right.
of like peelings and things like for the pigs. And then so then you do that, and then you always have this one field where like they are grazing, and then you're then growing
Yes.
your other crops on the other fields where they have been previous, and they have sort of gone to the toilet, they've, you know, sort of kind of de-weeded and all this and the other. So then that soil is then better maintained for then sort of the next crop that then you want to grow.
Right.
So sort of so that's when it's sort of like, you know, sort of if even cotton is done in that way, then actually then cotton isn't that bad.
Right.
It's the way the cotton's obviously grown now. Like I say, it's, you know, sort of using up water from lakes and things like that, so then they're going dry because it's been grown in the wrong places, or it's being and then it's using sort of like so much more water and so many more resources to kind of like keep it sort of going and producing so much more. Whereas if you reduce how much you need to produce, and then you go back to this sort of original way of farming, then you know, sort of you'll end up probably growing like a better product because it will be far more natural. And also you will and then it's just sort of is kind of better for the environment and everyone all round, basically.
The area that I grew up in central Illinois was very well known for its farming and for its agriculture, for its soil. The soil was extremely rich there. And they ran, you know, there were lots of companies, seed companies, DeKalb and, you know, other Pioneer seed brands and things like that, that would grow test crops in that area because the soil was kind of top quality. And so we would have fields and fields of just rows labeled different, whatever genetic modification that was growing in that field was. But when the farmers lived there, when I was young, they would rotate crops so that the nutrients in the ground didn't get completely zapped by just always growing one type of crop there, or things like that. They would even leave their fields or parts of the fields fallow for maybe a day, or I'm sorry, not a day, but like a year or two, maybe possibly, for nutrients to recharge in the soil and things like that. I'm not sure we're doing those sorts of things anymore, that careful rotation of crops through so that, you know, the right amount of nutrients are in those crops and things like that.
Correct. Yeah. There's a few. There's a podcast that I listen to called Revon Air, and she's been doing a big old series at the moment on regenerative farming, and sort of like not only for the food industry, but sort of kind of other industries as well. It's really interesting. Sort of like they're sort of like the ones that are doing it, but they're only obviously sort of small farms. So if you happen to be near one, then obviously you'll know about it. But other than that, it's sort of it's kind of not very wide ranging. Sort of
Exactly. It's not well known.
No, exactly. But yeah, sort of that's exactly the sort of the idea, was to keep those like nutrients in the soil. And because even sort of when you kind of dig out the soil to plant in sort of new crops, that releases carbon into the atmosphere and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas sort of like when the sort of animals kind of go around and they're sort of stomping on the soil and that, it's yeah, is sort of a more sort of natural kind of way of sort of the soil kind of compacting itself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, sort of more of a sort of where things are going. And yeah, so then, and then out of that, then you get these sort of ones that can be rain fed. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like they're, because that's how, like also like how things used to be.
Yeah.
When yeah, when there was sort of more, when they were like naturally growing in more sort of arid sort of countries and things like that.
Yes.
And also, so another part of my dissertation that I've just come across here is going back to sort of like the designers in the 1920s, sort of like
Mm.
their use of cotton. Now, I went on a tour in the V&A recently, and the lady in there was talking about how when the sort of when Britain colonized India and things, and they obviously had the cotton trade over there. They went through a stage where it was they could only when they were producing it in India, they could only sell it to the UK or to Britain,
Yeah. Oh.
because you know they sort of didn't want anyone else to like have this like amazing cloth. But
Right.
then the weavers in the, so we had silk weavers and linen, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
in the in sort of Britain at the time, and they went on strike. So then cotton was then banned from being in the UK, and there was like this whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, until it sort of yeah, and that was all through Queen Victoria's reign.
Wow.
Um,
That's
yeah,
interesting. Wow.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I'd never realised it was such a thing.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
either.
yeah, but
Mhm.
yeah, particularly in London, it was the Jewish people would be in the silk weaving mills.
Oh,
Um,
I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was like sort of big business for them. Yeah, in
Yeah.
particular in sort of East London. Yeah, so that's quite sort of interesting.
Mhm.
And then sort of like they liked obviously cotton so much because it
Yeah.
was a bit easier to obviously sort of handle,
Yes.
therefore then sort of cheaper than silk and things like that. But yeah, so then and then eventually it kind of evened out, and then was able to be sort of like kind of freely used.
Yes. Mhm.
But yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like when she said about it even being so like it would be being sent to like the UK. Yeah, but then like sort of because of that, then the people in India couldn't use it, which I thought
Yeah.
was shocking. But I think it sort of goes to show kind of that's how things were run at the time. You know, it's sort of like,
Yes. Yeah.
you know, very uh what's the word? Yeah, just sort of like authoritarian, I suppose, sort of this way of like, you know, we own you, so therefore then like we kind of have
Yes.
to,
Yeah. It was the
which is quite
prioritization
silly.
was done by the, the person who was in charge, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
mm,
But yeah, so then out of that, then sort of like kind of Chanel was known
yeah.
for using a lot of cotton and
Mhm.
cotton jersey in particular. Um, and let's see what else I've got in here. Yeah, no, that's just more on fashion itself and sort of duplicating of garments and things.
Cotton is quite special as well because there's a lot of people who are allergic to many, many types of either fibers or, treatments on fabrics and things like that. And cotton is really something that a lot of people can wear without irritation at all. So I think
Yeah,
that's
actually,
interesting. Mhm.
that reminds me. I just said that with the wool is, like I have people say that they can be allergic to wool and even linging, which I never realised people could be allergic to linging. So
Mhm.
so then cotton is usually sort of the one. That sort of people like that will sort of go for.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, I never try and sort of put people off cotton, but I like to sort of educate people that,
Yeah.
sort of cotton is not without its own faults as well.
Yes.
But yeah, obviously, sort of, if you're allergic, then sort of to others,
Yeah.
then sort of what can you do really? So I'll just read a little bit here. Although these natural fibers are less energy consuming than man-made fibers, the damage on the environment is just a greater risk. There has been a change, however, a slight change, however, within the fashion industry regarding environmental issues, as a handful of designers have been conscious of the growing issues faced. Catherine Hamnett is one of the designers at the forefront of the campaign for organic farming of natural fibres such as cotton. And her Hamnett's spring-summer 2006 collection was based solely on organic and discarded cloth and trimmings. And I sort of bring that up because Catherine Hamnett I almost went and worked for, but that was in my work experience halfway through uni, and they said, and I was a bit sort of taken aback, but they were like, oh, if you come and work, then like you'll have to give up your studies. And I was just like, I like started working with you, like,
Wow.
what is this about? But now that I sort of kind of like, it really kind of scared me back then. But I wonder that sort of when I kind of look back on it now as to whether it was more of a thing that she knew, sort of like the dangers almost of even doing sort of like fashion at university, of sort of how it doesn't actually like set you up for anything.
Right. Yeah.
And
you never know, right?
yeah, exactly. So I sort of wonder kind of how things would have gone if I had taken that leap. But yeah, I was a bit. I mean, I've always been sort of very kind of nervous around those sort of things of kind of the unknown. But yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. What I'm trying to think what else to say about cotton. Oh, here we go. Joe has said,
oh, that's a good question.
Is linging better for the environment or more ethical? So linging also is not without its faults. So linging like bamboo, and also like cotton, but cotton, from what sort of I kind of know, because I have spun cotton before, is a bit easier because you're just taking that sort of like ball of cotton and kind of sort of separating it out and then sort of spinning it. Whereas, but obviously there is water used after that for like sort of dyeing and sort of cleaning and such things. But with linging and bamboo, it comes in this sort of hard kind of stick type kind of grass almost. It'd be good if I had a picture of some flax, but basically it's the linging is flax in the field, FLUX. So when you get that, you have to leave it out to dry, and then once it's dry, then you like sort of whack it to separate it all up. And actually there's some ladies who have a hemp field up in Suffolk, and that is very much the same. So you have to leave it to dry,
Oh
and
yeah.
then sort of kind of whack it out to separate, and then you get then the fibers off of that. So then they'll sort of come out. So you want them like fairly sort of long pieces of sort of the flax, to then sort of get a longer fiber, basically. And then once, and then sort of within that process, when they're sort of whacking it out, they often will put it through almost sort of like a machine that will kind of help do that. And that is very, that is like water based, often with some sort of chemicals in to help in that that process of separating the what would you call them? Flax, I don't know, like blades, sort of like a blade of grass.
Right. Yes.
What you call them. But yeah, so you sort of, you have to then like sort of separate that out. So they will often use sort of chemical based water. And then so then within that, it depends where you buy from. So when I'm sourcing my cloth, I will look into the farms and sort of like factories, and then sort of the farms that they get them from, as to what they do with that water. And I will use the ones where they continually use that water until it can't be used anymore. Because I found out this when I was looking for bamboo, and then so then I sort of started looking for linging in the same way. So they will continue to use that water, providing that you've got a good one. And then at the end of the life, they should then have a process to turn that water back into near sort of drinking water. So it probably won't be actual drinking water, but you might be sort of good enough for you to wash in, kind of thing. And yeah, so that's kind of what you're looking for when like you buy cloth, is sort of that. Well, that's what I look for anyway, sort of is that kind of process, because because otherwise then, you know, it's a lot of water that's just going to waste. And especially with it having chemicals in it, you know, sort of if that's just been flushed out into the rivers, as like we're saying our dye episode, you know, sort of it's no good for anyone. So I'm gonna have to blow my nose because I'm gonna sneeze in a second.
Oh no. Well, I can kind of just add to that, but while she's sneezing, most of the time hemp and bamboo, and I believe even flax as well, the strength is in the fiber as in its actual stalk as well. It's in the stalk of the plant itself, whereas with cotton is actually the fruit of a bud, and the fruit of that little cotton bud is the fiber itself. It doesn't have to be extracted from another piece of maybe wood or, you know, some sort of plant material.
Yeah, no, definitely. And actually stalk was probably the word I was looking at for earlier. No, it's sort of that's kind of sort of where all the fibers are, and that's like sort of within kind of cotton in particular. That's where they've been having trouble with recycled cotton up until sort of recently. They have only been able to they've had to add in like 80% sort of new cotton into recycled cotton cloth, because they were only able to get like really short fibers from the recycled cotton, whereas now they've got a process where I think they only have to add in like maybe 30% new cotton.
That's a lot better. That's nice.
It's a lot better. So that's, I'd say that's taken 10 years to get to that, so it's
Wow.
like really, really come on strides, and just shows that sort of like there are sort of people out there that sort of trying to make that change kind of factory level. It's sort of, because again, it's all this thing about sort of the consumers are the ones to make the change on the brands, for then the brands to make it, but there are also factories that are trying to make the change, which is like really, really positive to hear. And obviously sort of it being within sort of that kind of change of how much new cotton they have to put in, is also trying to sort of finalize that process of recycling, so then it doesn't then end up being a more expensive product.
Right.
It
Yeah.
can maybe be sort of hopefully like sort of a bit less than like newly grown cotton, but I think it might be about sort of the same kind of price at the moment, which I think is still sort of fair enough, because it's still like another piece of cotton. And I think just because sort of like regardless of kind of the cost of the originator, so like if they've had to like buy in all this sort of recycled product, regardless of that, there's still like a process in between. So so I think that's quite sort of fair enough. I saw some bits about bamboo from Joe. Oh yeah, so I'm more familiar with bamboo being used like wood. Yeah, so that is a thread as well, a yarn as well.
Yes.
You can make thread or clothes from bamboo. Yep, I've made a few shirts from bamboo. Bamboo is really, really good. So some properties of all. So bamboo is very good for being obviously sort of natural. It is a good wicker way of sweat, a deodorizer. It is also,
It's a very nice hand.
nice and soft.
Yeah.
And also very strong as a cloth. And sorry, I was going to say something else, and now it's totally gone from me. It's a bit better than linging in terms of creasing. It's sort of almost like an in between of sort of linging cotton, really.
Yes.
So it doesn't hold a crease as much, but yeah, sort of it's kind of nice for that. And maybe deodorizing was the word, but I think I was thinking of a slightly different one. But yeah, so it's like really, really good for that. No, it's oh my god, it's sort of, it's good like health benefit wise, and I can't now think of what it's meant to do, but not like sort of a vitamin, but it's meant to be like just like really healthy for your skin.
Okay. Yes. Not hypoallergenic, or
That's
it
it.
doesn't.
Hypoallergenic.
Yes.
So it's like really, really healthy for your skin.
Good.
And then cotton is also deodorizing, and not deodorizing, wicks away the sweat well.
Yes.
And can be deodorizing, not quite as good as bamboo, but is still good for that, providing it's like 100% cotton. And then linging as well is very good for wicking away. And cotton is very non-creasing. Whereas linging is creases a lot, and you have to take that as part of sort of own that when you're wearing your linging.
Right.
Um, it's part of
Wear
its
the
character.
crease proudly. It's
Exactly.
linen.
And yeah, so with that one, yeah, wicks away sweat really well.
Yeah.
Is also deodorizing.
Yeah.
And but yes, but people can get more of an itch from linging
Yes.
compared to sort of like cotton and bamboo.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that's, yeah, I can't think of anything else with linging, but linging is often because it's a slightly thicker yarn.
Yes.
So you tend to have it more of the heavier weight cloth. Whereas like bamboo can go from anything down to almost like a silk up
Yes.
to like a really
Mhm.
heavy sort of well, no, actually saying that, it's not even really that heavy. I'd say like a medium weight cotton.
Yes. Mhm.
Whereas like sort of a
Yeah.
cotton you can get like as a thin sort of muslin type, up to sort of suiting, sort of like summer suiting almost style. And then linging can go from, again, sort of being quite thin like a muslin, up to sort of like almost like a winter suit, I would say. Like can
Yeah.
sometimes get to like a wool kind of status of
Yes. Mhm.
weight. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's very good. So yeah, all very versatile, and all very good for your skin, as with wool as well. Wool is very deodorizing. I think that is even hypoallergenic,
Mhm.
and wicks away sweat. And so wool, as well as I think it's bamboo,
Yeah.
will so it will wick away the sweat, but like sort of, whereas like cotton, that will often, it will like hold it in the cloth but away from your body, so it will like almost be on the outside.
Yeah.
The others sort of allow it to go like on the outside, but then almost sort of uh sort of
Quick
evaporate.
evaporation. Yeah. Quick
Yeah, yeah.
evaporation. Mhm.
So yeah, so sort of really that's kind of the better way to be. Like you've
Yeah.
ever you ever been on a hike and then sort of you're all kind of hot, and that afterwards you'll notice that as you cool down, if you're in a cotton or something even, it will yeah, eventually then like you'll feel really damp, so that's why
Mhm.
it's still in the cloth. Oh, and she says nothing beats keeping you warm when it's cold in a sheet.
Yeah.
Indeed.
The wool.
Um,
Yeah.
and Maya, I don't know what your question is in regards to, so please clarify. But yeah, so that so that's sort of the sort of state, sort of like, so then kind of what you would use those cloths for could also sort of reflect sort of what they do for you. So that's why sort of you often get cotton in particular in sort of t-shirts,
Yeah. Mhm.
in as denim, because it's very strong.
Yes.
And then like in particular in sort of jeans, because I was talking to someone about this the other day, they were asking me about like the rivets in jeans and sort of
Yeah.
why you have them. So you have like the metal rivets, and that will, you obviously particularly have them in like the corners of pockets and things like that, and
Yeah.
that will just really hold that corner sort of nice and tight for you, so that it doesn't come away like the more you use that pocket. And then you'll notice then down the side of the jeans, you'll have what's called a bar tack, which is just like a really tightly sort of stitched little stitch,
Yeah.
that's often like sort of halfway around sort of the hip area, really. And that is sort of works the same as what a rivet does, but obviously you don't want to have rivets there because you'll end up sort of hurting the sides of your legs, really, as you sort of bash them potentially. But yeah, so they just sort of like really like hold that area in sort of like nice and tight, so that it's nice and secure, and it shouldn't rip particularly easily. But the one thing with cotton is when you're wearing them in these things that are quite sort of daily use products, is that if you don't care for them properly when you're washing them and then drying them, they won't last as long. Whereas it's a fiber that should last like really, really long. You know, sort of there's been cotton found since sort of like the I don't know. No, actually, no, there was a linen dress that was found since medieval times. But, you know, sort of like there have been them found sort of since kind of like the Industrial Revolution and things like that. And, you know, and they've like preserved really well.
Yes.
Because they were, you know, they were cared for very well. So, so basically for a t-shirt, I often like will wear a t-shirt underneath any sort of top that I have on top, so that I don't have to wear the one I don't have to wash the one on top so often,
right?
Whereas like my cotton t-shirt I can sort of wash as many times as I want. Whereas then with jeans, we're always told to wash jeans less, and if you haven't heard that, then you're hearing it first. And I will tell you, wash your jeans less. You know, sort of, so what you want to do in the sort of the difference between the two is, because a cotton t-shirt is that sort of thinner material, with the jeans being the sort of heavier duty sort of cotton. That's often sometimes when they can be sort of shorter what's the word for it?
Staples of cotton.
That's it. Yeah, staples. Yeah, of
fiber length.
Of the fiber, and so so then it will sort of kind of disintegrate easier, like sort of the more you wash it, kind of thing. So so with any cotton in particular, and with any product really, because I think that conditioner was a product that was invented so that then our garments wear out more, so then we have to buy more. So sorry if you use it, but try and use it less. But yeah, so you don't want to use conditioner, because it will only eat away at the fibers. So in particular in jeans, but also you'll find it on the armpits of sort of like t-shirts and things, when you've used like deodorant and things like that. This is what I found in going to natural deodorant, is that I realised that that I would get like staining on the underarms from like sort of like kind of canned deodorant and things like that, and I think it's again sort of whatever they put into those products that is then what creates that staining, because since I've gone natural deodorant, I don't get that anymore. And so it just breaks down better as a sort of product in the wash, basically. So you can obviously sort of like wash those sort of t-shirts and things as much as you want, because they will hold up really well. But then when it comes to denim, for jeans in particular, when you get it wear in between the legs, and I always get people say, oh, you know, particularly when I worked in Levi's for a bit, it was always, it's because I've got fat thighs. To which I would say to people, I've got the same issue, but mine doesn't wear as much, because
Yeah.
A, I don't use conditioner, which again eats away at that fiber. B, I don't, and I would cycle to work as well, so it's not even just as you know, I would cycle in them and everything.
Yeah.
And B, I would just wash them less.
Yeah.
When I was at Levi's, I found out about putting denim in the freezer, so that's a good way. It kills the bacteria. And then
Great idea.
also, yeah, I've always grown up with like my mum line drying everything, so I always do that. So yeah,
Oh.
just hang, even if you haven't, you know, if like say it's got a stain on, sort of do like a spot clean on that particular area, and just like sort of hang it out to dry on the line, or you know, sort of on the clothes horse, flat where possible, and yeah, and it will sort of be a lot better. But yeah, and when you put them in the freezer, you tend to sort of like kind of put them in a plastic bag, or something, like if you've got other food in there. But you can just put it in without the plastic bag. Yeah, and just sort of like leave it in there for sort of a day or two. Yeah,
Till everything's
and then
gone.
comes out, and then you just lay it out to sort of yeah, sort of defrost a bit,
Cool.
but they don't come out like sort of rock hard. Yeah. But yeah, and then they're absolutely fine to wear, sort of, you know, and you won't yeah, you won't need to wash them so much doing it that way as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Mate. Oh no. Right. So I think this is what May's question was. What is good for your skin? I didn't hear if it was bamboo. Yes, bamboo and wool. So they are both hyperallergenic, and both will I mean, all those linen and cotton also deodorizing, but in particular, sort of bamboo is very good for that, and they will also wick away the sweat as well. So all good in those kind of things. Is there anything else we can use instead of conditioner? Not really. If you when you take stuff out of the washing machine, if you just like give it a good old sort of flap around, sort of kind of really sort of hard, and that will kind of help to sort of fluff up any of the fibers.
Yes.
After kind of the wash. And I will say as well, sort of don't machine dry, don't use like a tumble dryer, line dry sort of everything where you can, because also a tumble dryer will also sort of try and break up those, well, not try, but it will eventually like sort of break up those fibers a lot more, because it sort of makes them then too dry, so then they end up snapping. So yeah, sort of kind of beating, because they used to, like back in the day, they would have like a stick and actually like beat the garments, and that's why, to sort of fluff them up a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah.
And but yeah, and also I would say maybe use a bit less wash that you might sort of use.
Yeah.
Because it's surprising, sort of, you kind of do like what sort of the bottle says, but sometimes like you don't always need to use as much. Oh, this is a good one. Vinegar. Yes, vinegar is very good.
Yes.
You want the white vinegar and not the chip vinegar.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, just like a dash of vinegar is very good. Yeah, forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of helps. That helps a lot in sort of places that's like more of a hard water.
Yes.
To sort of yeah, do that. But yeah, so Yeah, apart from that, I don't sort of do anything else sort of different myself.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then sort of like the wash that I use is from a company called eCover, which they're more of a sort of a natural based cleaning company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I really
That's
like
neat.
their stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
and because there's a place near me that's a zero waste store, and they so you just go there with, like, with your bottle and then fill it up from theirs.
Oh,
Um,
that's nice. That's good.
yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
really good.
Well, I've noticed the packaging this year, because I've been doing shopping for Christmas and things like that. The packaging for some of these products is like there's more packaging than what's actually
The
included
actual
inside of
product.
the package itself.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly. Don't every time I see like people in my studio like buying stuff from Amazon, and they've got like sort of 10 different like sort of fairly sort of small things, and they're like, why is it not all just coming in one package? Like,
I
it's all
know.
coming from one warehouse. Which I just don't understand, you know, like,
Uh,
it's so
I know.
bizarre. Um yeah, so I've got nothing much sort of else to really say on cotton. So unless anyone else has got any questions, or you've got anything to say, Whitney, but I was just
No.
gonna just came across this bit in my dissertation that says, what does this mean for the industries? And I've got the fashion industry is the next step to be tackled over the environmental changes and the need for change within the textile industry. Change is the only way forward from these issues, and by defining the use and performance needed by individual cloth types is initially, oh, sorry, too many ands in here, forward from these issues, and by defining the use and performance needed by individual cloth types. It's initially in the other, that doesn't really make much sense to me now that I'm reading it back. But yeah, and then I just say, as this can be different for every product type, the
Yeah.
efficiency, quality, and suitability of the end product are the main criteria,
Mhm.
which I think is still a thing that sort of we're even kind of, you know, we still haven't come to that really, in
No.
terms of like what's
Mhm.
being made. For clothing, the cloth has to be of value for money in order to make garments worth buying. The quality to touch and wearability of the cloth and garments are another criteria
Mhm.
to be considered. The final end product is a piece of clothing in a shop that should still encourage the environmental message through washing and overall care instructions to help the garment last longer and reduce any further pollution. The initial change to a modern crop, change to a modern look at crop cultivation from a natural alternative is needed. Instead of high levels of chemical fertilizer, a natural alternative like manure or compost could be used. This should be the same idea for pesticides, as other insects are just as effective as chemicals, which I found when I was growing my veg patch in my parents, and I was sort of looking into different plants that you can sort of grow next to different plants,
Oh, yeah.
that would
Mhm.
sort of help and prevent sort of different types of
Mhm.
insects.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
the downside to organic farming is the time, as it's more of a natural process for the crops in in effect take longer, and the crops in effect take longer to develop. A way of overcoming this would be to use slower turnover rate of garments made, perhaps by only having 2 seasons, a winter and a summer. And this was back when we were just on the cusp of there becoming like sort of 16 seasons in a year by the fashion industry, with the cruise lines and everything. Or by using less cotton in the future, encouraging consumers to keep clothes for a few seasons, with cotton being a very versatile product. It could last longer if cared for correctly. The next step is production, and by using unbleached cloth and reusing and filtering all water. How funny when we were just talking about that. Filtering all water used in any dyeing process. This, as this will help lower the risk of water contamination and further pollution. Vegetable dyeing is another more natural solution, which does not involve the worry of water contamination. And then I go on to cutting cloth and everything. So the North Carolina State University, in conjunction with Burlington Industries, have developed a method to reclaim cotton waste and convert it into yarn to reweave, called reused denim. I can't even remember I even found out about this thing.
Wow.
The fiber content is 50% reclaimed denim yarn and 50% cotton, virgin cotton yarn. This type of reclaiming of fibers and yarn is being researched into for further cloth salvage. This could spark a new fashion trend if approached by top design brand names and marketed well. There we go. Predicting what was to come. I can't even remember going through that.
Right
on.
Well done.
That was good. Oh, is it going to come up? There we go. Bamboo clothes better for the environment than cotton. So again, I think that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. With even sort of like linen and things, and even like wool. It's sort of, they're all just as good as each other in, you know, sort of, they all have their different sort of values as a product of kind of sort of what they can be used for and why, but it all goes down to the production side of things. So, you know, sort of bamboo is very labor intensive in terms of the creating the fiber. So then that's then why they use the sort of water and chemical solution to help reduce that. But then you have this sort of solution, that sort of water solution that like is then sort of contaminated. So it's kind of how you deal with that. So you know, sort of, I think everything is as good as the other in terms of a product being made. It just depends how much is being produced, and then the sort of care cycle and sort of regeneration of said garment into sort of a different use or a different garment for sort of the future, because we can't sort of, you can't just say, oh, it's you know, sort of like kind of one is better than the other, because they all have downsides.
Yes.
And really the number one downside is the overproduction in the first place, which isn't consumer led, it is marketing led. And
Exactly.
actually I was listening before to a stream, I think it was last night, with Mitch and Sterling. So anyone from the SBTV world will know who they are.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you can go and check out their streams. But they did one last night, and it was on. Oh no, I've just lost my train of thought of where I was going with that. Overproduction. Of it being they were talking about like sort of consumerism in
Yes.
terms of films, I think it was, like sort of film production. And Mitch said that it's all a marketing thing, you know, sort of, and it's like that's what I kind of keep going on about,
Yes.
because a lot keeps being put on consumers over the years. That sort of like we're the ones that are demanding the more products being made, basically.
Yes.
And it isn't, you know, sort of, I've never been anywhere where anyone's like, you know, sort of, I demand for this, you know, sort of. Yes, it might be sort of like you're going and looking for something and you can't find your size, or, you know, sort of like
Right.
you're looking for a particular something and you can't find that.
Yeah.
But, you know, sort of, you could have like, you know, all the obviously all the brands in the world, you know, and there's still like things that people come to me as classes for like wanting to make their own stuff because they can't find it. But equally, we can't expect to find everything that we particularly want, because that would just be ridiculous.
Yes.
So, you know, like, and he said sort of it's all down to marketing, and it is, you know, sort of marketing is the people who lead everything, who sort of tell us what we should sort of where we should shop and why and what. So, you know, it's sort of I think in terms of sort of the cloth fibers, you should look at kind of what you're wanting. So obviously if you're wanting like stuff for exercise to wear for when you're exercising, then you'll be wanting something that wicks away that sweat, and, you know, and hopefully it sort of evaporates away, so then it's not sort of staying on you for you to get cold afterwards. You'll also probably be wanting something that is deodorizing, and you know, and if you are otherwise allergic to a lot of things, then you'll be wanting something that is quite hyperallergenic. If you're in a colder country, or you're going to a colder country, then you'll want something that will keep you warm, you know, so then that's like sort of a wool and things like that. So it's sort of, they all have different aspects and different elements, you know. It's why sort of people in sort of Alaska and sort of Siberia and things like that will wear like, you know, like actual fur and and use, you know, sort of like, well, they're the ones, if anyone's like gonna like hunt whales, then it should be them, because, you know, like they sort of the extra fat that like the whale has, they sort of need it because it helps them sort of survive there, you know. So it's all these sort of things, is kind of things are fine in moderation, and where it's yeah, you know, like, because even sort of like, even if they like sort of like kill a whale, they have like a thing sort of inherent in them that they don't just like, you know, go and like kill any old whale. I think from what I've like sort of seen before is that they was kind of sort of studying them, and I think they sort of go for the ones that are maybe sort of towards like the end of their life potentially. I'm not 100%, but, you know, and also sort of like when they're killing animals, they're using like the whole thing, so that's then where they get the fur from, because it's from an animal that they've killed.
Yeah.
for, you know, food and such things. So it's sort of, you know, so it's then when you get to places like sort of Japan and China and things like that, who, you know, sort of in China where they kill the, they don't even kill them, they just slice off the shark fin, the one on
Yes.
top, for the soup, and then they just chuck the shark back in the sea, still alive, but it can't blink and do anything because it's not got that major thing
Yeah.
that
It
sort of
needs
like kind
that
of helps
to,
it
yeah.
to swim. Yeah. And you know, and then like in Japan, like sort of with the killing, you know, hunting of the whales, they're doing that again,
Yes.
which was meant to have been banned. You know, so it's all that sort of thing, you know, kind of even like when like you think of sort of ivory poaching and things like that, and it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of yeah, things that's like just done for show, or just done for because someone said, you know, that one thing is
Right.
like a good thing to
Yeah.
do, you know, it's sort of it's yeah, so you know, sort of
Yeah.
moderation and kind of thinking about why you're buying a particular product, what you're going to use it for,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
sort of, yeah, kind of doing that appropriately and effectively is sort of the best way forward, really.
Yeah. I think it is funny what you were saying about, you know, we don't, you know, like I'm not going to walk into Macy's and say, I demand a pair of Tencel jeans, right? Because I can only get cotton jeans, but I want some Tencel jeans, right?
Yeah,
That doesn't really happen, right? That doesn't happen. So if there's new techniques or new, you know, ways of making things that maybe is perhaps better, you know, maybe bamboo is better than cotton in a sense for jeans, for instance, um,
mm,
then we're kind of at, you're right, we're at the whim of the PR people, of whoever wants to like let us know what the advancements are, or if they feel like they even rise to the level of being made known, right, to the
yeah,
public.
exactly.
Hmm.
And that was like my other reason for like never wanting to do a like have a brand of like products,
Yes.
because
Hmm.
you know, how do you know like what people want, you know, it's sort of like it's just because, you know, sort of, even though there's sort of all these sites that like predict the trends,
Yeah.
you know, it's just what someone else has like said that that's what the
Hmm.
predictions are going to be. It's not on anything. That's why sort of when I make stuff, I want people to come to me with what they want making,
Yes.
rather than me like dictating to them what they should wear.
Hmm. Yes.
Because yeah, because I just don't think that's a healthy relationship in a way, you know. It's sort of like
Yes.
you're yeah, you're just sort of like kind of the whim of whatever's in the shops, to be honest. And it's quite interesting because I haven't really been shopping for like ages, but
Mm.
it's sort of like one of the reasons why I'll go vintage shopping sort of over anything, because I'm just like, you know, sort of wherever I go, like there's
Yeah.
going to be sort of other people that have got the exact same thing. And I was kind
Yeah.
of talking about it the other day, how we're actually sort of talking about Monsoon, because she'd brought in a skirt that she wanted to copy that was a Monsoon skirt.
Mm. Mhm.
And she was like, oh, you know, like, you never see their shops anymore. And I was like, yeah. I said, because they've tried to do too much, and sort of they're, you know, have all these, they've gone away from what they were before, which was these sort of uniquely sort of still hand printed and embellished and things garments, to
Yeah.
then it just being sort of mass produced and there being too much of everything.
Yeah.
Whereas like if they kind of had their stores more like regionally, and then had certain products for that area, then, you know, sort of, I just feel like that's just a better way forward. And I
Yeah.
don't really get why no one's done it necessarily. But it's why I love sort of like charity shops and sort of vintage shops in different places, because like you'll just find such like different treasures in all of them,
Yeah.
compared to, like, depending what area you're in. You know, if it's quite a posh area, then like you'll know that you'll get quite
Yes.
nice stuff. If you know, sort of, and so
Yeah.
on. You know, like I've been to ones in sort of Spain and things like that, and it's just like such like a whole other like world to go and like see what's in there, some pretty shops. And yeah, so I just think like why is no one like doing a shop like that? You know, like
No.
like for a brand, because I just think it would be so much more interesting, and I
Yes.
just think you would end up like selling more in a way, you know, because then people would almost potentially sort of go around to like every store and sort of like
Yeah.
kind of pick up, you know, kind of certain ones, and
Yes.
also that it's better for the consumer, because then you don't have that thing of, oh, like what if someone else has got the same item
Right.
that I do, you know, because, or like maybe in like the store that you was in, like there was only 5 of that product, or you know,
Yeah.
even like, you know, so then you're gonna more rarely come across someone else in like the
Yes.
same
It's a little
market.
more unique and exclusive to the person, right? If
Yeah, because I can imagine then like people sort of going out of their town to like a different town
yeah, yeah.
just to like, you know, be like, oh, I don't want to shop there because, you know, someone
Yeah.
else shops there, so I'll go wherever, and yeah, and sort of kind of buy it there. Yeah, it might sort of kind of introduce more of sort of kind of creative sort of pollination in a
Yeah.
way, sort of.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Full of ideas. So if anyone wants to do that, then do feel free. And Mayo just says, going back to the whale thing, whale is
Yeah.
okay, I think, because they use it to survive. So that's like in sort of Alaska and yeah, like sort of such places like that. But Japan is they're a big unfortunate sort of killer of whales as well, because I think it's a bit of a delicacy over there. So
Yes.
you know, obviously they don't need to survive on it there, so it's a bit different. But yeah, shark thing is the worst thing to do to an animal. You
I
know,
think so
sort
too.
of, because, and I say that because sort of with rhinos and that, as much as that is also extremely cruel, they obviously kill the animal before they go and take the tusks from them, because you know they would end up getting killed otherwise themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, like just like thinking of those like sharks, just, you know, just being taken off whilst they're still alive, and then, you know, like God knows how long they, you know, go for
I know.
before that. So yeah, sorry, a
Horrifying.
sad note, but I just, yeah, it's just awful. But yeah, so that's that's that. Oh, and then just as I look back at my dissertation, I'm on to levers. But yeah, so sorry, I don't want to like leave us on that sad note with the sharks. So yeah, so I would say overall, yeah, kind of sort of think about kind of like where you're shopping from when you are having to shop new, and like I've said before, sort of I always go on the even if it's like a shop on the high street, I always go and like look up the sort of the store online and sort of find the about me page and things like that to really understand so what it is like behind the store, and in particular I do that when I'm shopping online as well, because obviously there's so much out there that you just can't trust
Yes.
from like what you see on sort of social medias and things. And I'm even doing it with charities, sort of like that. I might see like where people are kind of collecting money on the street, just because there's like being a lot that I've sort of seen, in particularly with that UK GC church that I went and did that protest for.
Yeah.
She's like sort of always kind of posting videos of people doing collections for them, and you know, like sort of if it wasn't that I knew through her, you know, like you don't always like look at like what the bucket's for, and you just sometimes
Exactly.
like, put in.
Yes.
So and it's hard because it's like you're having to do like more work when like maybe you're sort of trying to sort of dash between different places.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it's very worth everyone sort of understanding where their money's going, basically, no matter sort of what you're spending on.
Yeah.
And how much you're giving as well. And oh, right, here we go. So another part of my dissertation, which is the titles of section. How can these issues be overcome? And I've just gotten to a point here. Oh, and that's what I was going to say as well. Whilst I think about it. So in terms of the cotton production, the global average price of cotton is 85.6 US cents per pound. Yes. Disgusting.
That seems very low.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, so it's sort of like kind of, that's when like I say to people, like if anyone has like said to me about sort of wool and kind of like the images that sort of PETA and things put out about maybe sort of animals not being treated in
Right.
the best way.
Yes.
I know they
Yeah.
you know, it's often like sort of the same ones that they kind of put out, so it isn't every farmer. Yeah. And in particular in the UK, we have like animal laws sort of around that kind of stuff. But equally, I say to them, why should they treat them better when they're barely getting paid anything for what they're producing? You know, it's sort of like when like you go to these countries that are like already poor, like how do you expect them to sort of like kind of treat these things? And let alone with cotton and such, that's the people doing that, as we saw, you know, on the image, the people doing that on like hand picking on the farms, you know, sort of how do you expect them to be sort of surviving? Hopefully the image will come up soon. You know, sort of on that much money, you know, like they have to work so tirelessly, and then that's then why they get their kids involved and such things, because it's like sort of the more hands the better. So yeah,
I think that the people who have been working as well in the cotton industries and growing, you know, I think that they've been trying to make the best that they can out of these situations. But when you're speaking about, you know, redoing the way that you're doing a whole growing operation for cotton, that takes more than just living paycheck to paycheck. That takes like a reinvestment into, you know, the farm and what you're doing and things like that. So it's really not fair for these farmers to, you know, have to try to predict where the market is going, you know, what the PR people are going to want next year, right? And then try to adapt to make a living and grow, you know, whatever they can. It's sad. Yeah.
Very, very sad. Yeah. And then I've just got a bit here from my dissertation on consumerism. What are the views of the consumer? Consumers and cotton uses history of cotton. So I've got here that French fashion designer, Francois Gibaud, Gerbaud, used Egyptian cotton to create a jacquard jacket that simulated the people harvesting the cotton in Egypt, people feeling the jacket and admiring the jacket at home. Gabord designed this in connection with the predicament faced by the fashion and textile designers at the time. Egyptian cotton had been renowned for its softness. With the advent of synthetics, this had been forgotten. The industrialization of textile production is a major cause of decline in the standards, and Gabord's jacket highlights the lack of authenticity throughout design. So these are just like little mini kind of points that I was probably going to expand on. But yeah, so there you go. Even Egyptian cotton, which I forgot to mention earlier.
Yeah, Egyptian cotton is very, I don't know, they tend to use that in descriptions for things like sheets and to, you know, to denote something luxurious. I think Egyptian cotton, long staple, luxurious cotton, something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had people ask me before, like, sort of, what's the difference in sort of Egyptian cotton, and I don't really think there is particularly anything anymore. But yeah, I think it's meant to sort of denote that form of sort of luxury and
Exactly.
exuberance. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily any better as a product, because and obviously they will charge more for it in products, but as a cloth, actually it's no different than sort of other cottons when I've sort of seeing it advertised anyway.
Yes.
But it's very rare to be able to find like Egyptian cotton to buy for the meter.
Yeah.
You have to get it in big rolls. Our consumers. Oh, here we go. Right, futuristic textiles. Oh dear, lots of notes over this one. changing my wording. So revolutionary textiles are the future. Revolutionary textiles are the future. Sustainable synthetic fibers and advances in technology make the development of desirable, lightweight, thin, heat-retaining cloth that acts almost as a second skin has transformed the textiles from a cheap substitute into luxurious and fashionable cloths to which designers are putting their name. A modern reinvention of the once undesirable synthetics has created a new boom in textile usage, with fashion, in some cases, textiles have been renamed. Polyamide is the new name for nylon, which is now what Tencel is.
So it was polyamide?
Yeah.
Polyamide. Oh, okay.
Which became despised in the 1990s as a chemically produced synthetic textiles. Chemically produced synthetic textiles were most unattractive. Static made these clothes cling to the wearer and collected dirt. Which advances in technology becoming combined with new innovative fiber developments, and the future in textiles looks inspirational. Present uses of these contemporary textiles are stimulating within themselves. Many couture designers have showcased variety of microfibers and regenerated fabrics down the catwalks. Yeah, interesting little
Wow.
little thing. Oh, and then textile professionals who made close studies of the microstructures in nature, using technology advances which allow for the manipulation of the actual molecular structure of materials. Microfibers have been developed and modified to create fabrics with distinctive aesthetic and performance qualities. Yeah, so that's when sort of you're kind of getting these synthetic synthetic textiles that are being developed to have the qualities really of sort of these more natural fibers that I've been sort of saying about, but solely in purpose of sort of what the end result is going to be for the product.
Yes.
So it's sort of like, so whereas sort of bamboo is like really good for sort of like wicking away and the deodorization and things, but then it still has that crease to it, you know, or it isn't as stretchy and things like that. So it's sort of they sort of still want those sort of qualities from the fiber, but then they make this new product so that then it does this whole kind of spectrum of kind of qualities to the product.
Yes.
The cloth, sorry.
Yeah.
For the end product. Yeah, so these microfibers were originally developed as functional fabrics, and in definition have a yarn count of 1 denier or less. So in denier is the thickness of the
fiber.
Fabric. Yeah, of the fiber. Oh, sorry.
Oh, worries.
A weird tickle in my mouth, and that's why I went away, and then I suddenly yawned. Today they are very much present and take new forms as part of woven and knitted fabrics. The super fine yarns can be engineered, and the finer the fiber, the greater the manipulation possibilities for the production. And for producing the most unique look. Combining synthetic yarns of microfibers with regenerated yarns and cottons aid in the success of producing new cloths with greater handle and performance. Until now, and then we're like, no, all these things that are made up of different yarns.
Pretty soon we'll just have fabric that's made out of some sort of wood mash and lots of water.
Exactly.
And then extruded through something. We don't.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh, and then it's got finishing treatments used on these microfiber cloths, create a whole range of stunning futuristic textiles, antibacterial, light sensitive, deodorant, even blocking the rays of ultraviolet.
Yeah.
Are some of the examples of extreme textile development, as well as crushed and wrinkled fabrics. These microfibers can be altered at any stage of the manufacture, which makes these cloths real futuristic. Oh my gosh. That's like my whole dissertation. Real futuristic. Oh dear. Keeping up with the modern busy lifestyles to keep consumers interested in buying the clothes manufactured with these fibers. And this parts of this are taken from a book called by Sarah E. Braddock and Marie Mahoney. But it doesn't tell me what the book is, so maybe that is even the name of the book. But yeah, and then you saying about wood pulp, my image on the next page is actually a shirt that I made. You can't see it very well there because it's really tiny on the thing. But it's a paper silk shirt, which I think we spoke about before. So yeah, I need to upload some of the photos of that, and we'll do a stream on it. But yeah, it's a really interesting cloth that is nice, sort of shiny and smooth like a silk is, but acts very much like a paper. It's almost like a papaya in a way, sort of yeah, sort of with kind of sort of how shiny and that it is, but it has more movement than what papaya does. And is almost, I don't really know what else I can sort of, maybe almost like a bamboo, because a bamboo cloth, like yeah, because like bamboo cloth can be like really soft, but then when you get like to like the slightly thicker one, it's a bit less sort of sort of flexible in a way. So paper silk is a bit like that, you know, whereas so you can sort of like scrunch it up, but then like you're going to get all these like creases in it. Whereas like if you just sort of kind of use it sort of in like a flat way, it will sort of kind of move around, but it's got less drape than sort of like what a silk or something does.
That would be kind of neat though. It's a little bit stiffer.
Almost sort of like a taffeta in a way, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's a bit sort of less it's just sort of kind of has movement, but is not draping material basically. It's really it was really nice to sort of work with, because you just kind of lay it out. I think it's just like nice and smooth, and then you just sort of cut it. It's not like it doesn't sort of move whilst you're working on it. Like really,
as you're cutting and you're like, whoa, this is moving all over.
Like when people come to me wanting like, it's like their first garment that they're making, and they're using like a chiffon or something, and I'm like, oh no.
I know. That's hard to cut.
Or just pin it up and just sort of like stitch it, sort of pin to pin kind of thing.
You just do it, drape onto a mannequin type of sewing that way. That's that's easier sometimes.
Oh, and Mary says she still can't get over that clothing is made by hand. It's so funny actually. I had a guy come to a class the other day, learn to sew, and he was like, so you know, don't they have machines that do that? And because he was like asking me about like hand sewing as well, and I was like, yeah, like the sewing machine. And he was like, no, like, because like you have to have a person do that as well. And I was like, oh yeah. And he goes, so there's no like machine that does it without a person. I went, no, yes it does. I just it's so funny. But then like I was like saying in sort of the stream yesterday, how even when I went and did like my first fashion course, I was like, oh my god, there was like all these like mannequins with clothes, and I was like, Mum, like we get to make real clothes, because I just never
occurred.
That was a thing that you could learn to do. I just like, I don't know where I thought they came from. I wasn't like disillusioned that like people didn't make them, but I just didn't think it would be a thing that like we'd learn. Like I just thought, like, oh, you know, someone somewhere else.
Like we just imagine it and it just happens. You don't have to work at it.
Exactly. And then people say to me, and I'm like, what do you mean? Well, like it's just like growing on a tree. And I'm like, to check myself, I'm like, I was thinking that once. Right, so conclusion. My research will be used to demonstrate the effect of the fashion industry on the environment and vice versa. The effect on the fashion industry. I believe that the future of fashion trends will consist of reversible garments and the recycling of cloth. In the meantime, designers should think about promoting the idea of a building block wardrobe where consumers can build upon their wardrobe from season to season instead consumers are led into buying more outfits each time a new trend concept is designed in order to be fashionable. An outcome from this research would be the knowledge of the direction of fashion from consumers. This would be helpful to find out what consumers really think about fashion trends and where this can take the future of fashion trends from the influence of environmental issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was like sort of one of my drafts, so it's not actually complete. But yeah.
Well done. I liked it. It was great.
Yeah, even I'm like surprised by some of the things that I've
What?
See,
you surprised yourself from 2000. What was it? 2007 or 2000?
Yeah, 2007. Yeah. All those sort of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
It was going all right in that, and with I would always have the Las Vegas poker on the TV because that was like the only
did that
thing
help
I
you?
had. Yeah, because there was like this like streaming things back then,
That's
and
cool.
yeah, so it's quite funny. May says it's a lot of stuff we just don't think about where it comes from. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
true.
It's sort of so I quite like watching these programs that they have. I think on the BBC in the UK that are called like The Factory or something, and they like follow the process of something, and they did one on the Barber jackets, the brand Barber. And like the whole like process of waterproofing the jackets and things like that. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow, that's cool. That would be neat to see.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Because I sort of presume maybe they just like got that cloth in or something. But no, they have like a process to do it all in their factories. So
it's amazing.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
So I hope that was all right for everyone.
That was fun. That's great.
Good. I'm glad. I will also just end off because there's a book that a friend gave me that's called Fabric.
Oh.
This.
Oh, beautiful.
Fabric, the hidden history of the material world. And when I was looking at bits from it earlier, I was actually thinking, like it's like, a book on fabric.
Yeah.
But it's like a story. So I just thought it was going to be like a resource thing, but it's like a literal sort of story about it all. So I will, and because I'd not been like sort of reading through it because I just thought it was a resource thing. So now I'm going to have to like, actually read it through. But I found this very interesting bit. So in Orwell's day, the newspapers called a woman seen wearing printed cottons calico madame. Calico bitch is what she was called on the streets.
Oh, goodness. She's wearing that printed stuff.
You know?
Oh, goodness.
Calico bitch. So, and then it goes on. And irony is that in June 1720, Orwell probably wasn't even breaking the law. there had been a Calico Act on the English statute books since 1700s, but it only covered calicos that had been printed, painted, dyed, or stained in Persia, China, or East India. So that's what I was saying about earlier about
yes.
this is what it was, the Calico Act, stipulating that from Michaelmas 1701, that is September of that year, they should be locked up in warehouses appointed by commissioners of the customs till re-exported, so as none of the said goods should be worn or used in either apparel or furniture in England, or forfeiture therefore, and also of 200, and then like an L, penalty on the person having or selling any of them. £200 was a massive fine in 17. Oh, right, that's what the L was, pounds. It was a massive fine in 1701, equivalent to more than £40,000 today. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Playing
Wow.
Indian muslins were still legal, but they had a 15% duty. Merchants got around the law by importing undyed cotton from India and paying silk to textile workers. Usually Protestant refugees who had arrived after persecutions in France to be printed in. Oh, right. So that was, so maybe that was before the Jews. But yeah, because I know that eventually the Jews were sort of there. So maybe that was more sort of around the World Wars.
That's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, they
about that.
just.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I bet you a lot of that happened prior to the United States becoming a country, right?
Yeah.
So I should go back and look at some of those because it's kind of like the two things I like is fashion and law. It's kind of
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'd be nice to sort of, if we could kind of find, like stuff on,
I know.
like maybe like sort of suits at that time or something.
Yes.
Oh, right, here we go. So there were three main exceptions. Fustian, the cotton linen twill blend used mostly for working clothes, which looked like a cotton but was exempt from the printing and dyeing rules. Muslin because it was worn rarely and by the rich. Interesting, because that's like seen as more of a sort of lower grade cloth now.
It is now. Yes.
And also because it couldn't be replicated in linen. Blue calico, because it was worn exclusively by the poor. Yeah. This law wouldn't be repealed until 1774, although it would be modified in 1730s to allow printed cottons, as long as the printing was done in Britain. So then that's then when it became.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think it was like sort of then when it was a thing that sort of like Indians then couldn't wear it for a time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't even imagine having a law that regulates what you can and cannot print on a piece of fabric. It's very strange, isn't it?
It's so funny. Like,
yeah,
like sort of like that's like the one thing that they could like to stop it being used. It's sort of like cotton was sort of so like undesirable to have as a unprinted cloth.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
So yeah, I just I saw that earlier, so I had to bring that up. But yeah, so don't go shouting on the streets, but at least it's a little tidbit that everyone can sort of say to people. And over Christmas, I'm going to be going through all my videos and cutting things into shorts. So we'll see if I sort of put that one together, I'll do a little short out of that. But yeah, it's been lovely doing this tonight. We've gone on for quite a while today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for being able to stay, and thank you to everyone who is still watching. This is so exciting.
Thank you for
and so
watching.
you can go and check out what Whitney does on her channel. I'm just going to put that in the comments as well.
I hope everybody has a happy holiday.
Yes, exactly. Oops. So that is Whitney.
Oh, thanks, Claire.
That's all right. And then if you wouldn't mind liking this stream, and subscribing to us both if you so wish, that would be very lovely. And also for anyone that hasn't been, please sort of go back and kind of watch our playlists, just to sort of kind of help us with our watch hours. That would be most helpful and gratefully appreciated by both of us, please. Because sort of watch hours seems to be like the hardest one to do. I was talking to Jennifer earlier and sort of saying, sort of I kind of don't see it tick very much. Sort of when I did the protest was like the only time it really sort of ticked up. And I think it's because even like so when I'm doing this, like I can see like how many eyes are on the screen, and it will sort of kind of jump every now and then. So I literally think like you have to be like watching the screen. So what I would say, if you're wanting to help with watch hours, or if you can help with watch hours, then like put it in, but maybe like whilst you're watching something else, and just like have it in your eye line so it can maybe sort of clock that you're watching. It's the only thing I sort of can think about with it. So yeah, that would be greatly appreciated for everyone, and I will sort of try and do the same to others as well. Lovely. Thank you so much, May. She said this is very interesting. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you and everyone else. And we will see you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'll take you off if you want. There you go. And yeah, we will speak to you all soon.